As if I didn't already love Jalen Brunson with all my heart. He goes and does this 4-year extension worth $156 million, which relatively speaking is nothing. In comparison, he could have waited till next summer and collect $269 million. This dude took a $113 million discount, stays with the Knicks for another 4 years. It's one of the most, when Woj tweeted out, he wrote it perfectly. He said, like, in one of the most unprecedented financial moves in NBA history. And it really is that. And it's so important for the Knicks because it doesn't necessarily free up cap space for the coming years, but what it does do is the money that Brunson gave up is going to be used to sign extensions for Julius Randle, hopefully, who's extension eligible, I believe, sometime in August, and Mikal Bridges next year. And it allows the Knicks to do those extensions, to come to terms on those extensions, while still staying under the second apron. I'm sure you've all heard a lot about the second apron, and you might not fully know what it means. I don't fully know what it means, but it's a good thing to stay under the second apron. I think it makes your team a bit more flexible in terms of the moves that you can do. Not necessarily like, giant blockbuster moves, although I think it does help in terms of matching salaries, how you don't have to match them exactly, draft picks, whatever. Like, you're just more flexible when you stay under the second apron, and you're allowed to make more moves, better moves. And so Jalen Brunson taking this deal helps the Knicks do that, which is great because obviously they're competing for a championship right now, and so you need every advantage you can get when it comes to building a team, building on the margins, and Brunson helped that. And it really is so special to see this happen. One, just because in general, to see a player of this magnitude, I don't think anyone would argue that Jalen Brunson is a top 10 player, superstar caliber player. To see him leave this much money on the table. Now, in fairness, he did, people think it is a sacrifice, but there's also this other element of part of why he took this deal now is to set himself up to enter free agency after 10 years, where he could get the 10 years of service supermax worth over $400 million. So like, that's also part of it. And also, you could also make the argument that, like, hey, it's better to lock in money now instead of betting on yourself and risking something happening this year. Isaiah Thomas is probably like the best example of that, where, he comes off this MVP caliber season, but then winds up having to sign for the minimum because he got hurt. Like, stuff like that happens. But to see Brunson do that, like, again, a guy literally at the top of his game, make this kind of sacrifice, even if it might pay, better dividends down the line. Like, the look right now is that he sacrificed by signing the max now compared to the max next summer. To see a player of his caliber do that, it really is so insanely special. And I think the thing that's also so crazy to think about as a Knicks fan is that for years we've been waiting for the superstar to come save us, to come bring us back to relevance, to drag us out of the Eastern Conference sellers, to help us compete for a championship. And for the longest time, for as long as I can remember, it always felt like that guy was going to be an already established guy, a LeBron, a Durant, someone who was already an established guy on another team, and he was going to come to the Knicks in free agency or via a blockbuster trade with all of our assets. Like, it kept feeling like that was going to be the move. It felt like if things were going to work out for the Knicks, that was going to have to be the script. But to see what's happening now, where Jalen Brunson joins the Knicks as like the solid point guard, and even back then when he signed the 4 years, $100 million, people thought he was overpaid. For us to sign this guy and for him to develop into this superstar caliber player under the Madison Square Garden bright lights on this team, for him to develop, for him to become that guy on this team, it's been so surreal. And it's so surreal just how much, like, you see certain times like guys really fit the mold, the identity of where they play, and Jalen Brunson is just one of those perfect examples where it's the talent obviously, but it's the leadership, it's everything he says in the media. Like, one of my favorite parts of this past playoff run wasn't just the things the Knicks were doing on the court, but like every time Jalen Brunson spoke to the media, whether it was after a win or more impressively, whether it was after a loss, like, he always said the right thing. Like, he was always like, when people tried to bait him into talking about, how the Knicks have so much injuries, he's just like, it doesn't matter. After he played poorly, he was like, I need to play better. It was always so refreshing. And he just is New York. He's the perfect guy, tough, hard-nosed dude who works really hard, who doesn't make excuses. It's so great. And for him to do this kind of extension to really help the Knicks build around him is just, it's so like this entire story of Jalen Brunson and the Knicks has just been so improbable. It's been so special. It's been so weird, but like in a good way, to see that like the superstar we finally have now came in this so like no one predicted this. For it to come this way, it was so unpredictable, but still so awesome. And I really do feel in my heart that like this has to end in a championship. It does. It has to end in a championship because this script is just so good, not just from a Jalen Brunson perspective, but from an everything perspective. Everything the Knicks are building, like the script is just too good for it to not end in a championship. And Jalen Brunson is the engine. He's the headliner in all of this. And for him to take this deal, even if it does set him up, for better things down the line, like for him to do this now to help the Knicks right now in the next couple of years where they really do have a legitimate championship window, it's so special. And it's just another reason why I love him, because a lot of guys say they want to win. A lot of guys don't make the sacrifices needed to win, whether that's on the court, we see that, but also off the court with money. Like, and for Brunson to be doing both at a time where he could have easily said, hey, I'm this guy, like I deserve to make as much money, I'm gonna wait till next year and get that 200+ million. For him to not do that, it's just another example of how special he is, not just with what he does on the court, but what he does off it as well.